In a few days, the rising blood moon will reveal the resting place of the soul amulet of a forgotten demon prince. A dark lord seeks the amulet, and if he finds it, ultimate power shall be within his grasp. Someone must stop him and his diabolical scheme before evil is unleashed. But for the heroes to beat the Dark Lord to his prize, they must travel through time and conquer demonic foes. Hey, this is Todd. Necromancer Games sent me a copy of their module Chaos Rising. So I thought I would take a look at it. This will be different. I'm not doing a read-through in the sense that I won't be going over the entire book, but mainly looking at some of the interesting bits, showing some elements of it, and then giving some final thoughts. And obviously, this is just from my reading and what I get from that. I have not played it, have not run the module. So just keep that in mind as to the context. And also, this is not a new module per se. This is a module that was originally released during the D20 years, but they are in the process of converting some of these older modules into 5th edition and also into OSR, the one I am looking at. And if I will probably have some shots from the electronic version, the PDF will be from the OSR version. Let's get to it. That was what I read to you at the beginning was from the back of the module, so to speak. If you're looking at a printed copy, right, you would flip maybe to the back of the book to get a teaser. That was it. The other text on the back of the book is as follows, and it gives a pretty good indication of what you're getting with this module, so I will just go ahead and read it to you. Battle throughout time. Completely customizable for any fantasy campaign, Chaos Rising is a classic dungeon exploration adventure designed for 4 or more characters of at least 10th level. It details an ancient and abandoned dwarven citadel in which the demon's amulet is hidden and contains unique encounters in which characters can travel back in time to shape the future itself. That last sentence is probably key because that really is what would we call it? The hook of this particular adventure. It has an interesting location, which is called the Devil's Finger. The interesting part about the hook, as I was mentioning earlier, is the party is going to explore elements of the Citadel in different time frames. The module also concerns Jubilex, the faceless one, and you get some background on that creature, and that creature kind of lies at the heart of what the party is doing. One thing that's interesting and I do appreciate is for higher level characters. Oftentimes, I think people lament that a lot of the adventures and campaigns are those kind of 0 or first level to mid level, or maybe from mid level up. This is starting at mid level, depending on if you're. I always think of OSR as 10th level is high up, but if you're playing, I don't know, Beck Me style up to like a 1,000,000th level, then maybe you would call this mid-level. I think of it more as high level. I think for the 5th edition version, it's also the same level band, so that would firmly put it into medium going into high level. They split the adventure into multiple stages, and they preface this by saying which stage is in the present, which stage is you go in the past at one time, into the future, back to the present, going through portals and doorways generally. These different things signify in individual places. It's not randomly. It's not. You're not randomly going through doors and all of a sudden flitting through time. But the instances, it's very clear about which time frame you're in, where you're going. So I believe there's about 5 or 6 phases, and each phase will jump you either backwards in time, back to the present, into the future, back to the present, so on and so forth. The neat thing about that, from at least I find from a DM standpoint, is you get to kind of see the whole history of the place rather than having to try to, I don't know, introduce this kind of lore, right? You get to go see it. So you have this thing, the Devil's Finger, and okay, in the past it was this dwarven citadel, and sure, I could just tell you that, or you could have NPCs tell you, or you could find an old tome that tells you. In this case, you just get to go back there and see a pivotal moment in its history as a Dwarven Citadel and experience it and see that, meet some characters from that, and great, right? You get to kind of see that itself. And then, of course, you get to jump in the future and see what that's like. And then all these things are also giving you information, leading you towards this final confrontation. Now, the interesting thing with the final confrontation is it really isn't combat-centric. There's a puzzle, then you have to deal with Jubilex. And I think the interesting thing there, and obviously I haven't run it, so I don't know, is you really don't want to fight Jubilex. That's not a conclusion that will be fruitful for the party because it is a very powerful entity. It will probably destroy them or do something else very nasty. So if you have a party that leans towards kill first and ask questions later, this will definitely pose a challenge for them. But if you have a party that likes to think out of the box and likes to really think about different solutions to problems and think things through, I think it could be a very meaningful end to the adventure. And it's something a little different from the, you get down to the bottom or top of the dungeon, there's a dragon, to kill the dragon, yay, it's all over, right? This, you have to make some different choices and different assessments about what you're going to do. And you get to think about why you're doing it. And then if you are adding this into your campaign, and because it is really just one fixed location that you are exploring temporally, like the back of the box says, you can pretty much drop it anywhere. It doesn't have any lingering ties to other parts of a realm or universe or landscape. It does have certain figures, but assuming that your campaign has dwarves and demon lords and gods and things like that, then you can slot these in, maybe change a couple names to make it fit better. There's a faction that you want to tie something to, you can do that. You do get a chronology of events, so you can definitely look at the timeline and see the maybe a little bit of a greater context over where the party is going. One thing I like, it's a little bit weird in the module release, it threw me slightly, is they're going through these stages, and so the module kind of splits up everything into these stages, and they aren't just temporal stages, but because you are moving through them, there it's also functionally like you're going from, to use an example, a regular example, say going from floor to floor of a dungeon, even though and sometimes you're going to the same spot, right, but in different times, but you are jumping temporally. They kind of break that up after, I think it's the first jump, or maybe it's before the first jump, since the first section is really getting up to the top of this structure initially. But it is a neat section, and I understand why it's there. It's just the way it's dropped in there threw me for a little bit, but I'm not sure there's a better way they could really do it, is that it gives you the opportunity. I think the recommendation is that you're not alone in your little time travels. There are other time travelers who have accessed these portals or used other means potentially to get there, who are also searching for the same thing as you are. So not only do you have going into these times, these different temporal spaces, and dealing with the forces that are at play there, because you're dropping into situations, in medias res, as they say, right, in the middle of things. So you're dropping into a situation hot, and you're this outsider, and somewhat like I can imagine in a Doctor Who episode or a Star Trek episode, right, when the away team beams down to some planet and they're hiding from the inhabitants, and maybe they're doing it, and then all of a sudden they notice, oh, the Romulans are there, disguised or hidden as well. They're doing something. Okay, what are they doing? Right. So they give you some different elements that you can drop in there or use as, here are some other factions that are on the same path as this thing that you are. And one, I think it's always nice to have those things to give you some chaos to throw into the mix. I think it also probably has the effect, I would imagine, of giving you, in a way, a ticking clock. You're not alone. You can't take your time and dither around too long because there are other people working, right? There are other forces at work. You are not alone. And there's some interesting ones there. And they encourage you to come up with your own, if you don't like their factions, come up with your own interesting people. And it's another way you could tie things in, right, from your campaign, your setting. If you have your own big bad evil guy and you want to send the party on this kind of side quest to do this, or you want to tie it in with your main campaign and you want to have that faction also at work or some sub faction, great. Or if you just want to use, what they have. Similar for the, I don't know, it's the last stage, they would call it the penultimate stage, but essentially it's kind of you jump around some, I guess, microplanes. There definitely is kind of a Barovia feeling where you're kind of going into these demiplanes. I think they may even call them demiplanes, these sort of enclosed places that are, holding in these time these different temporal spots. And I think that's one of the ways they talk about how you can run it, is like this demi-plane that's kind of locked in this particular moment. And then at the end, you kind of jump into a bunch of these, and the module gives you the freedom of, here's some that you can use, or feel free to use your own. And that's kind of where the final puzzle pieces you put together before you actually run into the Faceless Lord themselves and do sort of the final puzzle. The stakes are fairly high, but it is one of those interesting things. If the party fails in the sense that the wrong people end up with the artifact, this would definitely be a world campaign changing event, which I like. As you would expect with a module, there are maps to all the locations. The one I've been going over is the OSR version. I assume the maps for 5th edition are the same. There are a couple of interesting twists, not only kind of the final artifact you're looking for, there's a couple of magic items. Some of the bad guys have tactics that they note, which is good. Some things will trigger, if you're in location A and there's some guys hanging out location B, they give you some ideas of what happens if they spot you in location A. Do they come over? What kind of things might they do? I think the module does a good job of giving you motivations for some of the different main players, which I think is important, especially in this when there could be a lot going on. And given everything that's happening, I think you would expect that maybe the party would have interesting ideas, and those ideas mean that you may have to riff a little bit off of the page from what might be written there to accommodate these different things. So having some ideas of, okay, this is a NPC and this is what she wants and this is what her desires are and fears. Okay, I can have some ideas so that the players decide to do something that I'm totally not expecting. At least I have some good idea of how they should respond. That is Chaos Rising. Author is James Kalura. I think I forgot to mention that before. It's definitely self-contained. It definitely doesn't have really any lore that you could not adapt to your own campaign or setting, which is great. It's got good art on the inside. Maps are solid. The module is based on a D20 version from a long time ago now in a very, very different stage of the hobby. I never played it, so I don't have any context for that. So I really just approached this as if it were a new module. This one, the one I'm looking at, again, is for the OSR. They have it for 5e as well. I will post links to where you can find it. I'm pretty sure it's on DriveThru. It might also be on either the Frog Gods or Necromancer Games sites. I will get links to you for that. Thanks for taking a look at this. I'm not sure if I will be doing more of these like this or not. We'll see. I really enjoy doing the read-throughs, but one of the issues with the read-throughs is that they take a while to do. I try to stream them, but I haven't been able to stream in a long time just because scheduling and everything. So this is a more abbreviated look where I'm kind of giving an overview of everything and trying to hit, at least what I think are the main points that are interesting to me. So if you appreciate that, let me know if you like it. Let me know if you'd prefer some other kind of format. This is definitely something that I'm still playing with, how to do these, what should I cover, are there different ways for me to do it to make it either better or less bad or whatever. However you feel about it, let me know in the comments. If you do appreciate it, like it, thumbs up's always appreciated on the video. If you want more of this stuff, then go ahead and subscribe. I always appreciate that. I do have Patreon and buy me a coffee links in the descriptions if you feel like supporting my efforts in that way. Otherwise, please stay safe, game on, and I will talk to you later.